President of the United States did something rare. He expressed a notion that we can all agree on, that kids belong in the classroom. But then he made it quite clear that beyond what it means to himself and his reelection, he doesn't actually care about those kids at all. He doesn't care about their health and safety, nor the health of their teachers or parents. He doesn't care about the federal guidelines put out by the CDC for keeping them safe. Guidelines based in scientific fact, not fantasy, but facts about how to stop this virus from spreading in schools. The president bragged today about getting the CDC to change their guidelines, to weaken them. And lo and behold, the CDC, which used to be a world-respected organization, they're going to come up with new guidelines, less difficult ones. Now just think about that. The CDC puts together guidelines based on science to protect kids and teachers, things like staying 6 feet apart, wearing masks, having airflow in rooms, washing hands. And because the president thinks they're too specific, too difficult, the CDC is just going to weaken them. And it's not me just saying that. The vice president actually said it out loud today.
The president said today we just don't want the guidance to be too tough. And that's the reason why next week CDC is going to be issuing a new set of tools.
Hoe je thuis de meeste energie bespaart? Doe de online huisscan. Essent helpt je met de beste duurzame oplossing. En geeft advies op maat, bijvoorbeeld over zonnepanelen of isolatie. Dus niet alleen aan André, maar ook aan jou. Benieuwd hoeveel energie jij kunt besparen? Ga naar essent.nl.
Oh, we don't want guidance to be too tough, the vice president said. Let's just have guidance based on magical thinking or a pamphlet written by the president's advisors, Diamond and Silk. Why not? Today, the president threatened retribution for schools that don't open. I'm quoting now from his tweet. In Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and many other countries, schools are open with no problems. The Dems think it would be bad for them politically if U.S. schools opened before the November election, but it's important for the children and families. May cut off funding if not open. Germany, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. I just want to quickly show you what life looks like in those 4 countries the president named. There are the lines all bunched together at the bottom of the graph. Germany reported 279 new cases yesterday, according to Johns Hopkins University data. Denmark, 10, Norway, 11, Sweden, 283. That's a total of 583 new cases yesterday in a population of about 100 million. As for the United States, we had more than 60,000 new cases. Today, we surpassed 3 million since the outbreak began, 132,000 lives lost. Cases rising, 35 states holding steady in 12, falling in just 3. That is the reality today. And tomorrow looks worse, not better.
I would not be surprised if we go up to 100,000 a day if this does not turn around. But I think it's important to tell you and the American public that I'm very concerned because it could get very bad.
We are still knee-deep in this, he says. A consequence, he goes on to say, of states reopening too soon and disregarding CDC guidelines for when and how to do it safely. Disregarding CDC guidelines, just like the president is now doing with schools and getting the CDC to rewrite the guidelines. Here's his tweet. I disagree with CDC Gov on their very tough and expensive guidelines for opening schools. While they want them open, they're asking schools to do very impractical things. I will be meeting with them. Turns out he didn't even have to meet with them. Listen.
The CDC will be issuing new guidance next week, part of a 5-part series of recommendations that will give all new tools to our schools. But what Dr. Redfield made clear yesterday, I'm sure he'll make clear again today, is we're here to help.
New guidance next week, 5-part series of recommendations. Here to help. I want to show you the CDC website and those tough and expensive guidelines that are currently there. Page after page of science-based advice, considerations for safely opening schools, in the words of one section header, full of, as another headline says, guiding principles to keep in mind, or in another section, promoting behaviors that reduce spread. There's advice on keeping students 6 feet apart, improving ventilation, installing barriers, protecting staff. It's comprehensive, and it isn't exactly outdated information. The material came out back on the 19th of May. You may remember after weeks and weeks of promises and claims that, they were just being edited, watered down. Then one night, with no fanfare at all, they just popped up on the CDC website. Now, this was a little more than 2 weeks after the task force stopped giving daily briefings, and then it became evident the president essentially washed his hands of the whole crisis, but was still pushing states to reopen their economies, which many did, before those guidelines showed up on the CDC site. And by that point, they're already open. The horse was out of the barn. or more specifically, the virus was. Flash forward to today as the president pushes states to reopen schools. He's now openly trashing those very same guidelines. This coronavirus task force is folding like a bridge table, minus Anthony Fauci, who wasn't at the briefing today in person. They tried to spin it today that everything they're doing is in the best interest of students. Caitlin Collins asked this question of the vice president.